now, what we're doing, the Cincinnati Youth Choir, we're preparing a virtual concert. We're engaging them in song as much as possible. I'm meeting with our leaders in person outside with masks on and connecting, talking about next year, making plans. There are a lot of ways to interact with youth and adults in a fun way online through Zoom. We can't really sing together necessarily online, although that technology is hopefully going to be here by fall. But we'll see as time goes.
Um, how did you go through that grieving of what we used to do and how we used to do it so that you could move forward? And then some of the steps you're taking on Zoom and with Flipgrid and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, that the webinar as it's come to be known, right, in our field, that was not a whole lot of new information, I think, to a lot of us, but having it all there in 1 hour really was crushing. It was crushing information. And I was texting colleagues across the country, and we were all sharing tears at the same time. So like I said, it wasn't new, but to hear it, it was hard. Um, but I loved that Tim Sharp, before he signed off on that webinar, was, so now we need to think about what can we do. I think he recognized through the process that it was real heavy information for us and hard information. So yeah, there was definitely a grieving process, and I've seen my singers go through the grieving process. My seniors are devastated to have lost so much of their senior year. My juniors are really anxious about what their senior years would look like. I have a lot of kids that are beginning to disconnect a little bit because they're mourning. They're mourning what they are possibly not going to have a lot of access to. So our job is, as choral educators, we're about building community. We are about getting them through those hard places. And yes, the main thing we use is that unified breath and that sound that fills a space that we're all in. But we can be creative, as the choral community has shown, and find ways of still creating the community, still being that safe place, and finding ways to make music, to sing together, to share together. So we're still that safe place, and that social emotional connection is very much there. It's very important to our students. It's very important to adults. That's what drives the choral community internationally, and the stats on how many people actually sing is staggering. We are by far the most active hobby, and we're blessed to be able to do it professionally. But doing it professionally in these times is a challenge. It's a challenge, no denying it. So yes, it's okay to mourn, but we are getting really close to fall, and the mourning process has to move into what are we going to do for our choral community, personal choral community, as well as the choral community at large. As I mentioned, we are working on a virtual concert with the Cincinnati Youth Choir, and I am taking those videos and audios and layering them, and one at a time. They're good. You can hear the fear in their voices. Then you get the next voice layered in, and okay, that they're sounding better together. And I will just sit here and have tears streaming down my face because I'm slowly getting to hear my choir assemble. Now, it's not my choir when they're actually in the room together. It's not that energy, but it is as close as we can get right now. And I get to hear that. And so now I'm finding ways that I can help them hear it. What I've found, I said the fear in their voice is what I hear in their audio. I found that if I can get those few brave souls, not just my voice as a demonstration voice, but a few brave souls from my choir to get those tracks submitted, then I can layer those, send them out again, and then the rest of the singers hear their colleagues, and all of a sudden they're singing with friends as opposed to Mrs. Lana, which is certainly not as much fun. And they match that sound better. So we are getting more videos submitted once I do that. As the teaching process, we have to really we have to really support their psyche in that they address the fear that when they're sitting at home and the sopranos have to float a high G, just doesn't float the same in that setting. It doesn't. And I don't float a high G in my house either. It just doesn't happen. So how do we as teachers help them cross that hurdle? It's communicating with them to find that quiet space if they can. Communicating with the parents so that they understand they need that quiet place where they at least feel like not everybody's listening to them or watching them. And then again, reminding the singers of the vocal technique that got them into the ensemble to begin with. Why do they love being there? They love that breath. They love the sound of the vowels they create together. All the things we do in a rehearsal, we have to do in small pieces online. We have to break it down more elementally for them to be successful and provide the structure for them to be successful. Yes, I use Flipgrid, as you mentioned. And what I do with Flipgrid is they submit, well, I can compile the listening tracks and the score into a digital file that they can get right there. And as far as I understand, there's a lot of discussion right now about copyright, but as far as I understand, as long as we do own the scores and it's a limited use digitally, we are able to do that because I can't go run it to every house. So they have the score in there, the audio track, teaching instructions, recording instructions. It's kind of a one-stop shop. They can submit to me through Flipgrid rehearsal or demonstration tracks that I may ask for 4 measures or 8 measures or whatever, and I can give them feedback. I can type feedback or I can record feedback so they can get a video back from me. So it's a personal interaction one-on-one, which is helpful. It builds confidence. The more they are submitting those demo tracks, the more they are confident in actually creating the full track. So it's good that we take time to do that, but it's a very big demand on our time as the conductor, as the teacher. So then in Flipgrid, again, they can, when we're ready, submit their full track, video and audio. And I can download that onto my computer and create the virtual choir and start syncing them and all that fun stuff. So, wow. Lisa, that's absolutely a great question because it's something that I'm learning through trial and error, honestly. And none of us have that perfect mix and process yet. We're learning as we go. So what I've learned so far, I'll have 2 examples. We will be premiering a piece by Andrea Ramsey that we were supposed to premiere on March 15th, and the University of Cincinnati, where we are ensemble in residence, closed down on March 14th. And so it was ready to go. It was staged. It was dramatic. It was wonderful. Well, poof, it's gone. So, and yet we have this gorgeous score sitting in our folders. So I thought, well, maybe we'll just get to sing it even in a park for our parents later this summer. That's probably not going to happen even that now, the further we go along. So I talked to Andrea and I said, what do you think if we try to premiere this virtually? And she said, absolutely. Well, I did a review with the kids and it's not perfect. It's not going to be perfect. It's an a cappella piece. It's not terribly rhythmically challenging if you're an advanced choir singing in a room together, but it's pretty rhythmically challenging for a virtual choir, especially a first stab at it. And I wanted to put that extra effort in to get it as close as we could. So I had extra rehearsals through Zoom, submitting the audio tracks, blah, 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 all the things that I just spoke of. And that is not perfect, but it's pretty good. It's pretty darn good. And it's going to be a nice track when we are able to share it. Then we have another piece, which we sing to the seniors every year. And that is our goodbye, our farewell wish. So I knew we all knew that. We had reviewed it a few times, and that's old hat. That's perfectly comfortable. That piece is a basically a disaster right now on the audio tracks because I didn't take the time. I thought, oh, they know this one. This is an easy one for them. It's not. I can't make that assumption. So I've learned, and I will change how I'm doing that. I'm doing as much adjusting and redoing some tracks as I can to make it a decent track for us to be able to still sing it for the seniors. But it's what I thought was probably going to be our best, easiest track is probably honestly going to be the weakest track in the concert. So that's a lot of learning as I go through trial and error. I didn't have the formula going into this. Now for fall, since I'm making the assumption that I will most likely be teaching for a virtual concert of some sort. Wouldn't it be great if it was a virtual concert where we were all standing in CCM's Corbett Auditorium through the house, and the video is on the stage, and we could actually perform something and capture a video of it. That's all there. I hope that can happen. I don't know, and I kind of doubt we'll get to that point. So I've got to be ready for a different kind of virtual, and the different kind of virtual is going to be layering these tracks again. So all of my teaching is going to be geared towards how do we capture those tracks? How do I teach them to be very exact about their breaths and their cutoffs, things that they don't think to be aware of because they're at home alone. You can't put a rubato in those running eighth notes. You just can't, because nobody else is, and I have to mute you or cut you out at that point, whatever. So I will be gentle but very honest with them about how we're going to put this together and try to educate them. And as I've told my leaders, this is going to be an educational process for you folks as much as it is for me. And then I've also asked them and my singers for grace, because I'm learning as we go. I did not have classes of this back when I was in college. It wasn't possible. It wasn't a thing. So I'm learning a lot, and I'm working hard to learn a lot about this, but they have to offer me grace as well. One thing back to Flipgrid is you can have them submit under a grid that is moderated, which means everything is blocked, or unmoderated means everybody can see it. Well, in my haste, I forgot to moderate one of the grids, and I noticed that it was getting a lot of views, the individual tracks. And I'm sure the ones that submitted were frustrated or nervous or whatever, but it actually ended up being really a beautiful thing, because we hear the imperfection even when I create the track. It's not a perfect track, and they know it's not. So they hear the imperfection in me, and they hear the imperfection in each other. And I think some of them may have thought, well, that's not what we sound like, and I can't believe that's happening, and so just didn't submit. But then again, I take those tracks and I layer them, and they realize, oh, that's what we do together. Together, we are beautiful. Individually, we show our imperfections, and that's okay. So that also helps with the confidence. My colleague with Indianapolis Children's Choir, Josh Petty, has a great strategy. And his idea is that he is going to make sure, and we will probably do similarly, that he prepares them, teaches his students how to prepare on their own. So providing the audio tracks, how do I practice on my own? How do I learn this? So that when they show up for a 40-minute Zoom, or even better, wouldn't it be a small group that can show up for 40 minutes in person, we're not teaching notes at that time. We've taught some notes through some Zoom rehearsals. We have given them the structure and the tools to continue to learn on their own, so that when we are actually together, we're building on making music as opposed to starting to learn the notes. So those are kind of all the things that I'm looking at for fall, how to make that happen.
Thank you.